Hi guys, it's the breakdown, and we're back again with another episode 3 of the Rugby Roundup. And there was a lot of Prem action this week. Where else to start than our beloved Bristol Bears? I
All right,
mean,
so yeah, starting with the Bristol versus Sale Sharks game. The first thing was George Ford and his game management. We saw him score a drop goal in the first half.
yeah,
Do we think that drop goals are underused in rugby?
Yeah, I think they are, especially in close games like that, because it was like the 37th minute, 33rd minute, something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
was only what was it 6-all, and then they just got a drop goal of absolutely nothing and went up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like obviously a lot of players just use penalties now, so like maybe there's not as much of a need as a drop goal. But I don't know. I think Ford in that game, like just in terms of his general performance, really showed some composure. Really helped to mastermind that win for Sale. And I think Marcus Smith needs to take a look at him and be like, "That's what a good fly half is. I can learn
yeah.
something from George Ford,"
That
sort of thing.
that leads on to my next question. Ford's
Mhm.
obviously had a long time of injuries. Do you think he can make a return into that starting England team for the World Cup?
He's the best fly half in England right now by a clear distance, and it's not even close. He's the best fly half, and if England want to maximize their chance of winning the World Cup, you take George Ford.
Kieran?
Yeah, I'd go forward. I think if unless you're gonna build a team around Smith, you completely drop him out of the squad. I think, and then you put Ford in there. I think Ford on that wet, windy day was just like Ashton Gate. He controlled the game beautifully, and they basically got on the front foot, and Bristol couldn't deal with the physicality of Sales. So it was a good all round performance from Ford.
Yeah. Another thing to look at from that game was Tuolangi. Defensively, he didn't get the ball a lot, but
Mm.
defensively he was very strong. Do we think he starts at a World Cup over Ollie Lawrence, especially with his performance against Ireland?
He's
No,
finished. I think he's finished. I think, yeah, he can put in. He's a good highlight reel now, but I don't think he's anything else more. He's quite sluggish, jogging, walking around the pitch. But yeah, maybe a good bench player, good squad player, good player to go in there, slap the bums of the players as they ran out onto the pitch in the tunnel. But I don't see
I,
him as anything more than that, to be completely honest.
I
I
think it
saw
depends
Kit.
on the matchup. Because like if you play against South Africa, I'd prefer him over Lawrence because he's more physical. But if you're
Yeah.
playing like and maybe in Ireland who are a bit less physical, more skillful, then probably Lawrence. But I reckon it depends.
And I saw you maybe saying, yeah,
I just saw in like the Ireland game in particular when Tuolangi was there, England looked like they got over the game line a bit better, and
Yeah.
like their attack flowed a lot better. I'm not saying Lawrence can't carry more, like Tuolangi is more effective, and we saw Tuolangi in the Bristol game absolutely nailing people. That's what he does best, and he does it for fun. So I think that's what England do need. It's close between Lawrence and Tuolangi. It's a like for like substitution you could bring on, but I would just edge out Tuolangi just for game line management.
yeah,
100%.
Tuolangi just simplifies the game a lot more.
Yeah.
We noticed. So before we move on to the Bristol Bears defense, the Curry brothers
Yeah.
again as a combination were very good. Are they maybe looking after the World Cup? Would they start for England? Be a combination for England?
I don't think Ben Curry gets in over Jack Willis. I think he's a good and up and coming player. I think I like what he does at the breakdown. I like how good he is in the loose, but I still think he needs to get a few more caps under his belt before he's ready to take that starting role for England. And I think also like the way him and Tom Curry play is quite similar. So why would you want two of the same players starting? You probably want to bring him on in the second half to do the same job Tom Curry can do.
Talk about living in your brother's shadow. I mean, Ben Curry's not he's a shadow of Tom Curry. I mean, he isn't the same as Tom Curry. He doesn't do the same things. This highlight of the Six Nations was him celebrating when they're 14 points down against France and he won the World Cup. To be honest, I would start Tom Curry and I'd go Jack Willis. That is literally what I would do. I wouldn't even put him in the squad.
No, no, that's valid. That's valid. That's valid.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to your country, right? When you're 40 points down, under the pump against France, worst English performance, you do a little jackal, and then you celebrate that you just won the World Cup. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, they weren't 30 points down. They're about 10 points down after the try.
No, no.
This was second half when they were like the game was gone,
Uh,
It
I
was
thought it was
and
the
Ben
embarrassing.
Curry
French
was
shirt
giving it
guy.
all this to the crowd.
If I was Steve Ballwick, I'm telling him to get his shirt off and get back in the changing room. That is embarrassing, and I'd give him a proper good old talking
Roger.
to in there. Yeah, not much.
Thing
Sorry,
I
Tony.
don't know if you boys would like this because obviously you're all Bears fans, but defensively, atrocious. The Laheath missed tackle was the worst part. Ibitoye was stepping in left, right, and centre. James Williams missed a crucial tackle on John O'Ross. Sam Jeffries, I don't even know who that CL9 is, and he's dropping off tackles. Sam Jeffries, and he's dropping off tackles.
I'll reiterate what I keep saying. Pat talks about learnings and defensive liabilities, and we saw no learnings. We talk about tackling. We need to be physical on the game line. We learned from that. Loads of teams that we played, we've not been physical enough. And then you got Laheath like a little toddler falling off Curry. Like, what is that? It's embarrassing to the shirt, to the city, to everything. I wouldn't even put him in the next team. I would actually rip up his contract. It's embarrassing. As a tackle that you see in the under nines.
Yeah, I completely agree, to be honest.
Yeah, he's been down the salon more than he's been down the training pitch. Like, like it's just I agree with Kieran. Like, they are an embarrassment, and I think you've got under 18 players there that could do more of a job. Realistically, what's stopping me from starting for Bristol? Because I could do what Ibitoye does. Realistically, I just need the dreadlocks, don't I? Jack, what do you reckon?
I mean, he did score a good try, to be fair, but yeah, defensively, it's just like they have no structure. They have nothing. It's like a bunch of 14-year-olds trying to tackle like bodybuilders. It makes no sense.
You got two things I want to reiterate, right? You got Ellis Genge, who I think, as much as he got a yellow card, he still has passion to play.
It should have been a red one. Can we appreciate how it should have been red?
That was a clear red, shoulder to head. But sorry, just to kind of like detour. Does this not make you a bit confused for the World Cup? What's a red and what's not a red? You look at the Freddie Stewart decision versus Ireland, which in my opinion wasn't a red. And then you look at something like this, which was clearly a red, which is given a yellow. So what was actually a red card now?
I don't know. Well,
I guess that's why they've introduced the orange card, isn't it? Just so they have more time to get clarity whilst the game still flows.
Surely every decision just should be an orange card, though.
I think there's a few that are clear cut. There's quite a few that are clear cut. Yeah.
Yeah, but you still always you would always look at it again, just in case.
Yeah, you always would. Yeah. Moving on, I would say the only positive from that game for Bristol Bears is the young 13 Joe Jenkins, 19 years of age, breakthrough season, and I think he carried well. Like he looks a lot more mature than he is.
Ron, you said carried well. He ran into Tuangi and got absolutely folded. Like
on occasion, he also set up the Ibitoye try, so there's a lot of positives from him.
Sorry, he's a very, very good player. You're not like very physical for his build, but at the same time he needs a lot more time. But that's where learning Lambs needs to come in and put him in that 13 shirt more regularly, especially with Semi leaving, because he needs game time under his belt, and he hasn't got that. Like we saw, ran straight at Tuangi's shoulder. I mean, yeah.
I would have to agree with Kieran. Like, realistically, the only thing we're learning is to get worse week in, week out, and the players look like they've been down the chippy more than they've been down the training pitch. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm looking at it and saying to myself, what is stopping the under 18s or like the new signings, some of the people we played with, from playing in this first team? Because realistically, some of them would be outperforming, I think, some of the current starters. They are just a disgrace. This season's gone. The way I look at it is, this season's gone. Let the kids play. Let the older guys have a rest. Give the kids some game time. Let them get some game time under their belt. Because realistically, they're the only positive thing about the team right now. Can we all agree that? Because
it really pisses me off, because what annoys me, right, is Pat Lam, and he talks, and I say about learnings all the time. The only thing he's learning, right, is to waffle after the post-match interview. He goes in there and makes all the excuses under the sun, right, about how his team didn't perform, the weather, all this. He just needs to go. Like, we actually should start a petition now to get rid of him because he's abysmal. Like, you've got a sell team. Sorry, you've got a sell team. Yes, they're second in the league. Just put a shift on. All the pressure is on Sale to keep up in that top 2 spot, and you still can't even bring them down to 10 points. It was embarrassing.
This is what makes me confused. Why chop the cheese in the Amazon where you can get all the deadwood on the Bristol Bears bench? I mean, you're looking at people like Ibitoye, Laheath, Bradbury. There's just so many people there that I'm thinking, do they deserve to even be professional rugby players? Like, it's confusing. But just on the last point about
all good points. Moving on to the Bath game, okay? And I need you all to put respect on Tom Dunn's name.
No,
Right.
no,
Right,
no,
listen to me.
no.
Listen to me.
No.
11 carries for 50 meters, 10 tackles, 16 from 17 with the lineouts. Man
That's
of the
his
match
job.
performance.
Boys,
That's his
I'm not being
job.
funny. If
Wait, sorry, Brian. Did you say you got man of the match performance?
Yeah.
That he got the man of the match, not just fast
it
man
was
of
a
the
man of the match performance.
match. So he didn't actually get man of the match then, did he?
I don't know who got man of the match, but he
So
should have.
that's just, what the hell is that? He's useless. Okay, he can throw a dart. That's his job, right? He can make a couple
He
of
can
tackles.
throw 11 carries for 50 meters. Very few hookers get those numbers. I didn't see
against
Harry
Gloucester.
tackle.
Against Gloucester, who have one of the worst defenses in the league.
Gloucester have one of the best packs in the league.
No, they don't.
Wait,
They
Jack,
don't.
you
They
go.
do.
Jack, you go.
I was just going to say, if Dunn played for Bristol, he'd probably be our best player at the moment. So I don't think it's right to take him down when Bristol are literal rubbish.
Nah, Jack. I think
Come
it's
on.
fair to compare Bristol to Bath. I think I was
Right.
saying to Brown, even if when they get Finn Russell next season, as bad as we are, we will never sink to the level.
No, Bath
to
will
the
be better
depth
than us
of
next
Bath.
season.
No, we won't.
Taddy.
We will still
Yeah.
we will beat them back to back in the derby next
No,
season.
we won't.
Facts.
No, we
Fact.
won't. We've just lost our two best players,
If
and
I-
they again
listen,
will be the best player on the pitch when it comes down to it.
If I was going to make a comparison, Taddy, the tackles that I saw some of your players dropping off, slag off Tom Dunn as much as you want. He doesn't drop off those tackles.
Yes, he does.
Will Stewart doesn't drop off those tackles. Beno Abano doesn't drop off those tackles. But these are all players for Bristol that are just dropping off tackles constantly.
I would take Laheath over Tom Dunn. Like, and you know how bad Laheath is.
Position.
I would take Laheath. Realistically, for me, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, does Tom Dunn even make the Bristol bench, Rohan? Like, does he?
No,
even
I don't think he does.
bench?
He
Yeah,
starts
Brent,
for
you
Bristol.
talk-
Currently he starts for Bristol. He's exactly what Bristol needs. I would go as far to say he's exactly the kind of player that Bristol
Why are
needs.
you? Why are you
Listen, what?
Why are you debating this? Bristol are
We
terrible.
we don't need a sluggish, slow, high IQ, useless hooker to come into this Bristol team. You talk about attacking rugby, which we need, right, at Bristol. You get him in the wide channels, he's puffing in 5 minutes, right? And he is useless. And you talk about Bath not slipping off tackles. They've got one of the worst defensive records in the league. And then you've got Gloucester, you've actually got a worse defensive record in the league for tries conceded. And you say, oh, then, he made this many carries against Gloucester. They've got one of the worst defensive leagues. The team league.
Kieran, talking about slipping off tackles, Tom Dunn's barber clearly slipped off the clipper, didn't he? I don't even know what trim he has, to be completely honest. And we don't need that Ashton Gate, but I'll reiterate my point. We will not sink to the levels of Bath next season.
Tom Dunn is very much a player that could get on the plane to France and come off the bench. Genuinely. Can you name okay, Cowan Dickey's not available. Can you name a player other than Jamie George, a hooker other than Jamie George to play?
I'd take George McGuigan, I'd take Jamie Benmeyer.
George McGuigan is on the bench for sale.
No, I'd still pick him. And I'd pick Jamie Benmeyer over him.
Realistically,
the only player I would take over Tom Dunn is Jack Walker.
Bro, can I make a point and say that I would genuinely call Dylan Hartley out of retirement, right? And I'll say to him, mate, it's Dunny or nothing. He'll be on the plane to France.
Well, okay, moving on from the Tom Dunn debate.
Yeah.
Lou Rees-Zammit on 2 occasions created opportunities leading to tries.
Mm-hmm.
Are we finally going to recognise him as a player that isn't just fast and has a better ability than just his speed?
So a player that we put on a pedestal as being this try scorer, right? And set 2 tries against one of the worst teams in the league. Like, you've got to put it in perspective. He's not doing it against Saracens.
I think what you're failing to put in perspective.
I'm not failing to realise anything. It's the worst team in the league, all right? And he's not doing it against Saracens, Sale, Harlequin. He's doing it against Bath.
Kieran, you'll forget they're the worst team, one of the worst teams in the league as well.
But they're not, because not long ago they were up in the top 4 conversation.
Yeah, but they're 9th now. They're below Bristol.
I think the issue you guys need to realise with rugby is recency bias is such a thing. If Louis Rees-Zammit was doing this week in, week out, then I'll be stupid to keep the stance of he can't do it, right? And he doesn't do it at the highest level as well. I think doing it at the Prem is one thing, right?
No, but
the ability to create
the point
like
that we're making is that he's a player that, yes, he come onto the scene as a player who was only fast, but in the last 3 years or so, he's become a very reliable ball winner in the high ball. He's improved his defense massively, and now we're seeing signs of him starting to create for his teammates.
He made a try-saving tackle as well in the game.
Yeah,
that's his
job.
A
try-saving tackle.
Why do
we're looking at a player now,
for things they're meant to do? That's his job to
Taddy,
make a try-saving tackle.
we've all agreed he is not a world-class player, but we're seeing a player with very good raw talent come onto the scene and over 3 years improve his game. How many times do you see a young player have a breakthrough season and then the next season be quiet?
Yeah, I'm looking like a Marcus Smith, for example. Like I think Louis Rees-Zammit is bang average, and we need to acknowledge that. Rohan, him creating opportunities, if he's doing it against the top teams, like Kieran was saying, then I can't continue to have the stance I'm having. But it's like, realistically, anybody could create against Bath. Realistically,
that's not
anybody
true
could.
though, because
They could.
Bath put 30 however many points on Chiefs and beat the Chiefs, and Chiefs are in the semi-finals of a Champions Cup.
Was this during the Six Nations period?
This wasn't during the Six Nations period. No, this was
fair enough.
2-3 weeks ago.
2-3 weeks ago. All right, fair enough.
In the Six Nations period.
I think it's a positive step in the right direction. He just needs to do it more consistently. But I don't think that's a ridiculous stance for me to have.
That's what we're saying. But I think we need to start recognizing him as a player that is more than just fast. But anyway, moving on. Saracens versus Northampton. Saracens fielding a B team, getting an early red card, still scoring 4 tries and coming within 9 points of Northampton.
It's crazy.
Does that show how far Saracens are ahead?
Not really. They lost. Realistically, they lost. If they're their B team and they've got one of the best academies. They've got, they've won European titles. They should have a team that could beat a second team that could beat most teams in the Prem.
But they had a red card the whole game as well.
Well, that's irrelevant. There's teams that have had a red card in games and that have won games. So,
Kieran, I usually back you, but I'm going to have to disagree. I think it just shows the depth of Saracens. They are basically miles ahead of everyone. The fact that they can get their B team, they can rest the Itojes, the Owen Farrells, and they can still dominate in a game like that. I think we've watched the champions already. I think Saracens, we all know one thing: when Saracens thrives, England thrives, which has been a common trend. If you look at the Eddie Jones period, that was a common trend. So I do think maybe this could have a positive impact on England. But yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
I think there's only one team that could beat Saracens in a playoff game right now, and I think that's Harlequins. And if Harlequins, listen, we'll get onto this now. Harlequins versus Falcons. They put, I think it was 48 points on Falcons. I know bottom of the league, but they're playing with a lot of confidence. Their top 4 chances rely on the game today. If Chiefs win, they have a chance. If Leicester win, then probably not. So I think Harlequins may be the only other team that could beat Saracens in a playoff game.
Did she Marcus Smith's blunder versus Newcastle, the defensive blunder? As I said in the previous video, he's a liability. But sorry, Kieran, you were going to make a point.
Like, we look at game management and teams that are going to win us the World Cup. Like, how many missed conversions does Smith have? He had over 3 or 4. Like,
Joe Marchant was kicking conversions by the end because it was his last performance.
Yeah, that's fine. But Marcus Smith, with the kicks he took, he missed 3 or 4 off the tee.
But so Farrell missed loads in the Six Nations. Farrell missed loads.
I'm not defending Farrell. I'm not talking about Farrell. I'm talking about Smith. I'm saying that
listen. Farrell is about as reliable of the tee as Smith is currently. So if you're going to choose,
I'm not talking about Farrell. I'm talking about.
I know Smith. You're not. I know you're talking about England selection. And if you're talking about England selection, who do you have to compare Smith to? Ford and Farrell. So I think these next couple of weeks, if Leicester end up losing to Chiefs in the next 2 weeks, I think we should really judge how good Smith is in the next 2 weeks when his team need him.